Okay, hello everyone. Um, so welcome. This is the masterclass for the Android development for beginners course. For this year, 2018, I'm Erwin. So welcome. This is the. I'm the acting tutor for right now. I'm here to help you learn about this and to, well, give you these presentations. Yeah, so app development for beginners. Eh, well, we know about Android. It's the leading operating system for the mobile market. It's developed by Google, and well, it's really one of the best places to start mobile development. It's open source, it's free to start, and it has a very big market. And I want to talk about some to give some context to the developing of apps. It's cool to see. Well, I can develop this app and I can do this, but remember, everything has a context, and the context of mobile development is different from the context of computer development. And since it works on Java, you might be thinking, oh, well, it's Java and I can work it like Java. But, well, there are some things that you can do and you can't do other than knowing the market and knowing your targets. You have to understand there are limitations and there are other strengths from Android and from computer programs. Portability is one of them, right? And that's what I want to talk about, the context of Android development. So for that, I have prepared a presentation that I want to share with you guys. And so let me begin the presentation. This is Android development for beginners, right? This lesson I want to talk about developing for mobile. It's it's a really important topic, and I think uh, it's not explained like very well on the course. So I want to go a little bit deeper on this. So we're gonna talk about some topics about this presentation. I want to talk about pros and cons of developing and the importance of system integration, user engagement, and all that. The UI and performance. Um, you will see that these two are really two of the most important things about developing apps. The marketplace and competition, you will see that is a huge marketplace, which can mean a lot of opportunities, but also means a lot of competition. Then I'm going to talk about a little bit about the layout exercise of lesson 1, which will mean I'm gonna go over the exercise, give some tips, and talk how do you solve some of the problems presented in the exercise. And finally, I have some tips that not necessarily are required, but it'll help you along the way. So let's begin. Pros and cons of development of mobile development. You see, as I said before, mobile is a very different market than computer programs. There are two of which I want to talk. Pros, portability, accessibility. This means, of course, portability, that the device is always carried by the person. And accessibility means, it can be accessed easily because, of course, they are with the app. I will talk a little bit more. And cons, of course, the competition and the limited resources that comes with mobile development, right? So the thing is, let's talk portability. It's a basic of mobile development. Of course, the thing that difference is that is different from other platforms is that it's portable, right? And it's one of the greatest strengths of some apps. And nowadays, there almost everyone who owns a phone carries their phone with them all the day, right? Phones have become means of communication, means of coordination for jobs and presentations, right? They also become organizers. They become game platforms too. They have become such an integral part of our lives that most people can't imagine their life without their phones right now. And we know Android has the biggest market share in the phone department. Well, in the mobile department, iOS being the second one, and it's like Android is something like 70%, and iOS is something like 19%. It's a huge gap. It's really a dominant force in this market. So that means they have a big audience. The the demographic of Android users is really big and really diverse. Like you can make an app that targets a specific group of people, like from one country, and that meet certain characteristics, and you probably will find a market in Android. It's that huge, and you have to take advantage of these things when developing an app. Throwing an app like there it is, use it, will really be a bad idea because it will get lost in the million of other apps that are available, right? And accessibility is the other problem that, well, that I want to discuss, of course, in the context of mobile development, right? People have their phones, like I said before, meaning that they can access or device or applications easily. They have them at ready all the time, and like the apps can be used at any moment, right? And that's one of the greatest strengths. People probably want some real-time apps, to-do lists, shopping lists. They are really great for this kind of markets. Like a to-do list in a computer will not, well, it wouldn't be as effective as one in a phone, right? Because the phone is, you can carry it and just you look at it and you have your to-do list right there. And instead of a computer that you have to fetch and then start, and well, it's a really different thing, right? And apps should really take advantage of this. The next thing is that because of this, they should have a simple and clean UI. Because you have an app, like imagine an email app, you wouldn't want to go through like 3 screens to just check your inbox, right? Or maybe the sidebar is too big and you won't be able to read the emails. It's the thing is that apps should have focused UI and screens, activities or fragments. Whatever the case, they should be really, really simple. That's why most of the apps use buttons that have images on them instead of text buttons, because it makes it more clean. And it makes it easier for an user to actually navigate your app. Mm, because most apps are not used for very long periods of time, like an email app or a chat. You just open it and check if you have any new messages and then close it, or send a couple messages and then close it again. You won't be having apps, well, most apps won't be running for a very long time, right? Instead of a computer that, well, if you have any background in programming, you know that you can spend hours in a program, right? But since there is not very much of that in the mobile department, I don't think that other than video streaming apps or maybe games will be on for a very long time. And because of that, um, most people also use apps in very small intervals. Like maybe you are standing in a line. Oops, sorry. You are standing in a line and you have like 5 minutes. You open your app and play a little game, right? You won't be wanting to do like really long work on an app because first, most devices are small and it'll be really uncomfortable to actually work on such a small device. And computers, of course, computers have more processing and more options than mobile department, especially since mobile has um, uh, mobile has one main input. That's the screen, right? And there's just so much that you can do with the screen. Instead of a keyboard and a mouse, the screen has to cover for all that. So that's another reason for the simple UI, right? Because you don't have a keyboard and a mouse and whatnot. So you have to navigate everything using the touch screen. Well, and those are the pros that I want to discuss, right? So let's talk about the cons. Of course, the marketplace is very big, and for that I have this graph. The competition is huge, and I mean huge in Android. You can see here from 2008 until the beginning of 2017, the apps have gone a little bit over 2 million apps, and that's from the beginning of 2017. Later that year, they will reach nearly 3 million apps. That means 3 million applications on the store, and well, that's a load of competition, right? As I said, there are more than 3 million apps in 2017, and that number is expected to grow up to 5 million apps, meaning there's a huge, huge market, right? And what can you do? You throw a new app there, it'll probably go ignored. That is because there is an app for everything. Uh, like that was one of the slogans of Apple. There is an app for that, right? If anyone remembers, that has become true. There's applications for everything you can think about. There are at least 3 or 4 applications that do the exact same thing. So entering the market is really hard. So applications have to stand out in some manner, right? Maybe your app is faster, or it has offline mode, or it can sync between devices or accounts. Well, most of those things are a given nowadays, but applications have to have something special about them because that will ensure people prefer your app to other apps. Like there's an application, a note-taking application called Evernote. I'm sure some of you know about it. Well, Evernote offers cloud synchronization between many devices and accounts and whatnot. So it has become one of the best note-taking apps that there are. And part of their success is because they know their targets and they offer the service in a manner that pleases the customers, right? Eh, and that's one of the things that you have to think about. Of course, you can't please everyone, right? But you have to take feedback really into consideration. You can't just ignore a bug or maybe it's running slow on certain devices. You can't just ignore that. Otherwise, your your audience will probably get mad and uninstall your applications. Sorry. Uh, so that's the thing. A good app should be backed by good customer service. It's not enough to just throw a good app. Maybe it's the best app there ever is, but if customers get angry, there'll be no saving your app. You have to take feedback, uh, bug reports, and everything into consideration. You have to answer quickly and effectively, right? Um, Now let's talk about limited resources. When you make a program for a computer, you don't really think about the resources, right? Nowadays, if a program is just running slow, the solution is throw more memory at it. And that's one of the reasons, like you can see in the game industry, games are getting much, much bigger, right? The games used to be like 2 gigabytes each. Now they are reaching 50 gigabytes. And that's because they are poorly optimized. And that's one of the pitfalls of developing apps. You can't just keep using resources. A phone is not like a computer. There are limited resources, and your program has to share those resources with every other app. If you're We'll talk about this a little bit more in later lessons, but if your application, well, your application can be stopped at any time the operating system thinks it's appropriate, like it's running on the background and the operative system needs memory, they can just kill your app. So if you take too much resources and you're doing this huge work, there's no guarantee it will last. And the other thing is the battery. The battery life is one of the most important things on the phone, right? These are the two biggest problems for for an application: draining the battery and unexpected crashes or big use of memory. Like, of course, using asking for too much memory and the system can't comply, it will crash. Maybe you're doing something that requires another thing and it's already and it crashes. Well, your resources are very limited on a phone. The battery is very important, as is the memory. Arguably, these two are the most important, the worst offenders when it comes to developing applications. It's a battery life is not a concern for most computers, right? Computers spend most of the time plugged in, and laptops have big batteries, and they can be plugged in too. But phones are mostly on the go, right? They are like they are with the people all the time. They carry their phones, and most people don't go charging their phones like every 20 minutes. People have some power banks, right? And but that's not a solution. The power bank will run out of battery again, and they'll have to find another way to charge them. Most people just charge their phone like one time a day, like overnight, and then unplug their phones in the morning and go with that until they give another charge at the end of the day. So you have to be careful with battery life. And this is not a really big of a concern in this course because they are really simple apps, right? But remember, this presentation is about the context of app development. Um, you have to think about how the app will be when it's run on an Apple phone by Apple people. So, well, this thing is better monitored. You have to do optimizations and whatnot. Avoid keeping the screen lit. It's one of the biggest things. That'll be, well, that is not covered here, but if you guys want to check, when you upload an app to the Google Play Store, there's a really neat console, the Google Play console, that gives you all these statistics whenever someone uses your app. It reports crashes, usage, and whatnot. It's a really cool thing to keep track of these stats. So, what I was saying Draining the battery is um, it'll probably lead to your app being uninstalled. Like maybe the phone lasts, say, around 8 hours, and upon using your application, it lasts 5 hours. That's a huge drain, right? And when the user see that your app is the one draining the battery, they'll say, Just gonna go and get another application that does the same thing." Now, memory usage. This can lead to very crash, right? To a lot of crashes, right? You have to remember this is limited and it's shared between apps. You can't just ask for the whole memory to run your process. It will not work. Mhm, mhm. And even if you don't use the whole memory, right? Using a lot of memory will slow down the phone, and in return will slow down your app. And whenever your app is running on the background, if it's running any background jobs, your app will just slow down everything. And whenever another application opens, that application may crash because there's not enough memory, or maybe your own application will crash because there it doesn't have enough memory to actually keep running. So this is another reason to install. You have to remember, think of applications from the customer side. They don't want applications that are crashing every now and then, and they are draining their batteries. You have to think about an application, how the user will react to the application. If it's fast and it's convenient, they'll probably keep it. So you have to think of those points when developing an application. Well, if you are gonna publish that application, because of course you can run an application for a private company and whatnot, but that's not the topic at hand. Well, now let's move to the second point of the presentation: system integration and user engagement. System integration is, well, how you interact with the user when the user is not actually using your application. This meaning is notifications, widgets. You can use alarms to run your application, right? And there are 3 points on this second point. The importance of keeping the user engaged is some ways that we can do this: notification, widgets, and alarms. We'll cover this more in depth in the course, but this is just a little sneak peek if you want. And there is a thing as too many reminders that I also want to address in this presentation. So, the importance of user engagement, right? Most apps, like you have a game installed, like a game that runs on energy and whatnot, eh, they remind you when you have recharged your energy, right? So you can keep playing. Or maybe you have an application like a to-do list application. Those applications reminds you, send you a reminder whenever the task is due. Or maybe you have a sort of a planner or a schedule application. Those also remind you whenever there is an activity, right? Like if you set an activity to 7 a.m., you will receive a notification at around 7 a.m. And those kind of notifications are used so the user will keep coming back. The user uses the application, like I said, for maybe 5 or 10 minutes at a time. So that's not a very long time. And well, since most of the revenue comes from ads and whatnot, that's also another topic for another presentation. But since most revenue comes from ads, you want them as engaged as you can, right? Well, you have to remember that notifications, well, mostly notifications, they have to be meaningful. Like, um, back in the old days when everything was done on computers and whatnot, and you subscribe to a page, they usually send you emails, right? And like, well, edX does this as well. They send you emails reminding you, oh, there's a new course open, or you have to continue your course and whatnot. Well, you can think of notifications as these reminder emails as well. They have to have some meaning. They have to be meaningful. They have to be important, is what I want to say. Because, like, if you have an application or a game and you see just a notification and just says, like, oh, good morning. Well, that's really just not useful. It's kind of annoying, to be honest. And the thing is that notifications occupy space and whatnot. And users may think about notifications, there is something important. So then you see a notification that just says, welcome to our app or thanks for installing. Um, well, and those things are right for emails, confirmations and whatnot. Maybe you want to show some characteristics to a user, but notifications are not for that. They are used for important information. Like I said, if a task is due or there's a new event or something. Hmm. Now, widgets are the other way of interacting. They are like, think of little screens. Like if you have used Gmail or something similar, there's a widget that just shows your inbox and you can check the email right there. You select an email, like takes you to your app. Yeah. That's the basic gist of widgets. They are meant to show a little bit of the application. Mostly that's the most important feature, and that leads you into the application because it's faster than having to open the application and navigate to the actual activity and whatnot. Um, and here are some emails that make use good use of widgets. Like I said before, lists and planners, uh, they can be there on your home screen, and you don't have to go out to the application and browse to whatever you want to see. You can just uh, unlock your phone and it's right there waiting for you. That's a great use for widgets, right? Um, well, and all in all, user engagement can make or break an application. Not every application needs to have this degree of user engagement, right? But it's really useful when the application deserves some notifications and whatnot. And these are three ways of engaging the user. We'll see this on the course as I did before, but these are the most common ways of interacting with our application. They should be important and meaningful messages. There is another kind of notification, the ongoing notification. Most music players uses this, right? Where you can just see the controls for the music player. There are uses for that, but that's a really good one. And and this is just so you know, there's that option. We just present this math functionality, as I said. Uh, that's to avoid the startup time and whatnot. And the alarms can set a function or a certain application to run at a certain time. The alarm application, of course, is the most common and the most logical example because it runs the timer whenever it's time. Um, the alarms can be scheduled in many ways. The alarm manager is the one that has been on Android the longest. It was there on the first version of Android. Then is the job scheduler, which was introduced in Android 5.0 with this lollipop, and it has been there since there. This one is one of the features that don't have backwards compatibility, so you have to use that on only relatively newer phones. You have to remember your target audience, right? When setting an SDK to develop for, if you are going to use exclusively the Java scheduler, you have to set it to Lollipop. Otherwise, you have to manage that functionality on older phones. It can be a little bit tricky, but okay. And the sync adapter is one feature that is well, it's meant to sync data with a database or something like that. And well, a sync adapter is used to sync data, but to use a sync adapter, you actually have to well, have a background, no background, a server running right where you can sync data, and it's well, we don't cover that here because we don't aren't setting up servers and whatnot. But most people don't use the sync adapter simply because setting up a server is quite difficult, and then handling calls, the data, and there are alternatives that do this for you. In the next course, the professional course, we cover Firebase that can actually sync your data for you. Amazon can also do that. So sync adapter goes mostly unused, right? Because there are other alternatives that cover the the need to sync data for you. But those are the main three ways to keep user engagement outside your app, make the user come back to your app and whatnot. And those are really important, and you should study those and practice how to use them. You should check how other applications use them. Maybe you got some ideas to use some of your own application and whatnot. So, next thing is, as I said, there is something as too many reminders. Like they should be something that of course take talking about notification. They should be important, but they shouldn't be too frequent because of course an email app will notify you whenever you receive a new email, and that's an important feature, right? But think about let's talk about a game again. And this game is sending you a new notification every 10 minutes to check the something new or whatever. That's also not a good idea. It can be very annoying to see new notifications, and there that's just the same thing that you have seen already. So one thing of handling this is, first of all, the user should opt in the notifications. They should select if they want to receive or not the notifications. Most applications set this up on startup, like the first time a user opens an application, it shows a little window that says, do you want to receive notification? That also should be on a settings page, right? And you can also set the frequency of reminders there. Like maybe the user wants to receive them every couple hours, or maybe once a day or once a week, whatever. Well, that's the thing, right? The frequency should be catered to the user, and the user shouldn't have to put up with a notification they don't want. There are, well, there's also something called inbox style notification. I'm sure if you have used an email app or a chat app, you have seen this type of notification that when you receive many messages, they're grouped the messages and just show you like the title and whatnot. There are different types of notifications. They can help you like manage the amount of information, or maybe send more meaningful information. You can send the inbox style is what the chats uses that show many, like several lines of messages. And you can also use like picture notifications and whatnot. You should use the notification most suited to the task instead of like using several ones to say the same thing. And well, that's the part of too many reminders. That reminders should be small and should be relevant. You can study about different types of notification to send the most important one on the most suited one. Oh, well, that was mostly what I wanted to talk about, given the context of the developing apps, and not like, so you don't go like developing apps like if you have previous experience, you probably develop for Java or C++, C Sharp, something like that, maybe .NET, whatever the case is. um, Most of those applications aren't optimized very well, or they don't consider how they're interacting with the user, because computer is a whole different environment, right? Well, now that's done. I I want to talk about the exercise and give some pointers, help on that to, well, to how to do this exercise. And for that, I have picked some points that I think are, well, the most important in the exercise. Of course, this being the first exercise is very simple, but you have to be careful with some of these things, or otherwise you will probably uh, have some problems down the line. The first point is passing data between activities, data, sorry, loading data in the activity. That's part of the first. That's the first part of the exercise. Then the language support, and well, this isn't really part of the activity, but I want us to mention some stuff that you can do with styles and some stuff that you should avoid when doing a style. So data between the activities. uh, you put the data in an intent. The intent is how you uh, how activities interact, and the most common use is calling another activity. Start new activity with a new intent, and well, you can actually add data to an intent to send messages between activities. You use the command, well, the function put extra, like you create a new intent and then use the intent that's put extra, and you can, well, add a new integer or a new string or whatnot. And that data is sent along with the intent to the new activity, and the new activity can fetch that intent and get that data from the intent. So, then you create a bundle. Bundle is, well, as the name says, is a bundle of data. And you can see this in the exercise, right? In the base code, these things are already done for you, so you can see how they work. You create a bundle, and then from the bundle, well, you create a bundle from the intent, and then from the bundle that you have created, you can extract those things. You do this by get string extra, get int extra, and whatnot. You can also use get extra instead, and then handle the type that you are expecting. Well, this is all easy, it's clear. But one thing to remember is get int extra receives a default parameter. This is usually used, it's a good place to use for debugging. If you're expecting a phone number, you have to receive a number that is a positive integer, right? So you give it a default value of -1, and then if you receive a -1 in the other activity, then you know there's something wrong there, that maybe the number is not getting passed correctly, or maybe the input is wrong or something. That's basically, well, that's the basic gist of sharing data between activities. You can actually share custom objects, like you create a class and you can pass it through an intent, but that's not the topic at hand, right? This is how you solve that part. You just put the extra and then receive the extras. Then comes the loading data part. Of course, now you receive the data and whatnot. Well, first you have to add the new text views. And text views is really easy. It's just drag and drop on the editor. You can also copy the data from the XML view instead of using the preview. Well, the screen preview, you can do it by XML, by coding yourself, and it's much easier to do it by the drag and drop method. So, well, whatever way you use, you should have a screen that can hold all the data. Like, it should be name, phone number, email, and whatnot. You make one of these, each one, and then you use, of course, you have to first call the text views, like find view by ID and whatnot, or use the bottleneck library. Any of those work. The thing is that then you use the set text method on the view that you have called, and you set the value that you receive from the bundle. From the bundle. Yeah. And that's easy, but you have to be careful on the phone number. If you pass it as an integer, you should receive an integer. But set text works with strings, not integers. And you have to be very careful on these kind of functions. There are many functions that work with one type. Well, if you have Java knowledge, you know that to be true, right? Some functions just work with some um, well, they work with some parameters, and if they receive the wrong parameter, they'll just crash, and that'll be a really bad idea. So, to well, this is from Java too. But, this is the part of being careful. You convert the value of the integer with the string function value of, or you can use the integer function to a string, whatever works. You could also concatenate and game white space and whatnot, but concatenating spaces is really not a good practice, and you should use the functions that are made for the system. Of course, then after you have moved from the sending data, receiving data, the next point is to actually add more languages, right? And this is how you do it. You go into the project view instead of the Android view. Then you add a new res in the res folder. You add a new directory, and you call it values dash. No, that well, values minus is not a dash; it's a minus sign. And then whatever language you're using, there's a really cool list on this link right here, Stack Overflow. I'm sure many people know about that. Well, in this particular place, because well, in this answer, there is a very big list and it's updated for Android 5.0 or higher, that it shows you all the languages that Android support. Well, you get one name from there, or maybe you already know the name. You create a directory that is called like values minus es for Spanish language. And then inside that, you create a new file that is called strings.xml. And then Android will select the appropriate strings for whenever the language of their phone changes. And well, that here's what I said, like you create the directory and whatnot. This is really important. You have to name these strings the exact same name. Like if a value, a string is called welcome string, uh, on the other string file, it also has to be called welcome string. Welcome, yeah, welcome string. Um, because otherwise, like maybe you think, oh, this is the welcome string too. No, it will not work because Android is searching for the same value with the different string. So this is really important, and you have to take care to actually use the same names, right? Maybe you could copy them from a value and then set it to another, just change the content. Eh, well, the important thing is that they are called the exact same. They are case sensitive too, so be careful. Um, then be careful. Displays can change in size, especially if you set it to break lines or wrap text somewhere or something like that. There are languages that can be really shorter or really longer. Like if you have a string in English and you want to add support for maybe Chinese, you can write a lot with very few symbols. And if you're doing the reverse, maybe your text will overflow. So you have to be careful when designing interfaces and whatnot, especially with these kind of things. Uh, Concatenation is not a good idea when using strings, and that's because some languages have different grammar. In English, like you generally add the adjective and then a noun. Like you want to say, "I have a red car," that's an adjective and then a noun. But in Spanish, it's backwards. You use the noun and then the adjective. So if you are actually concatenating stuff, then you may run into a situation that it's wrong because the grammar is wrong. Instead, you should use the getString function. And this works like if you know some about C or C++, this is how you actually handle the strings. Like you use placeholders and then send the values. It works the same way, right? And this is better if you're supporting many languages because you have the placeholders where you need them. You are not trying to concatenate stuff like where it might work in one thing and it may not work in the other. Now, finally, uh, some things you can do with styles and you should do and you shouldn't. Um, this is one way to do the exercise, right? You just grab the text views and set the attributes for each one. It's perfectly okay. And when there are little text box like little very few text views, like maybe you have 4 or 5 on that, it may be a good idea because you're not repeating much code. But now imagine having too many text views, like you have 100 different text views. You should use a style, but using a style can also be problematic if you're not using it carefully. So, uh, have a look at these styles. These aren't for the exercise, but I made them like this so I can make example of them. So you have a style that is called big title font, and then the other one is called medium font. You can see they have different colors. The title one is in all caps, is centered, and it has a size of 10. The other one, the middle font, has margins and it has a smaller size. Uh, Styles are meant to be used for text views that have so they can have some sort of feel or style on that. But consider there are some considerations that you shouldn't do when working with styles. Um, Suppose that we have a couple text views that maybe they just share size and color, right? And you say, oh, I'm gonna use a style to avoid doing that. And you make your style and whatnot, apply them to the text views. But then you realize uh, one has a bigger size and the other is aligned differently. And there's also like margins and whatnot, maybe the gravity, whatever. There are many different attributes that one text view has and the other one doesn't. That will be a problem, right? Because the styles is just like uh, either say getting in the way of the whole uh, avoiding code, extra coding, and extra lines, and recycling code. If you have like two attributes, but they have too many other attributes, they shouldn't share a style. Yeah. A style should be used like for maybe you have a title style, right? That is bigger, it has bolded letters, and maybe it's in caps, to get attention of them. And the description style is softer color, maybe gray or something, and it's a smaller font. But that's what styles should be used for, to actually help you design many views without having to code the same attributes on each view. Instead of just being like a blanket, like you just make a style that is text color black and size 10 sp, and you apply that to every text view. It may work for some things, but it will also not work on bigger projects because, of course, having too many different text views, this style will just be overwritten on many of those. Well, finally, am I running some out of time? I want to share some useful tips that are just like quality of life improvements. Alt plus enter. You can actually, when you implement a view or something, we'll see the recycler view and you'll understand this, but you can implement the methods and Android Studio will work the methods for you. Uh, will write the code and well, it just saves you the trouble of adding the extra code and whatnot. When you are actually adding a text, you can also use the shortcut to extract the string instead of just going to the string file, typing there, and then referencing. You can do this all the way from here. Another thing is that if you find a function in maybe you're reading someone's code, you can find the sample code, like right click, find sample code, and that will open this from the Android monitor, and you can, it will show your result. You can open that in a browser and will take you to the class that it has the actual function that you're interested in. And finally, the generate menu, you use the Alt insert and open this menu that is under the paragraphs, where you can add constructor, getter, setter, and whatnot. One that I really like is the override methods. Override methods because it will just insert the methods with the right signature and whatnot. And you should play around under Studio to actually find the things that you want to see. And there are many more useful things that I think you should actually take some time to get to know the environment. And well, it has been almost an hour. So if you guys like want to see a specific theme, or maybe you have some questions, maybe you want more examples or something, you can leave that in a forum. Just write a message, I want to see more examples in the masterclass, and I'll do that for the next one. Yeah, I remember these classes are for you guys to understand better things and to see whatever you want to see to deepen your understanding. So, well, that was the first one. The, I know it's a bit early in the week and you may have not seen most of these things, but I hope you actually find them a bit interesting at least. So, of course, you can always interact in the forums and or emails and whatnot. Um, I'll see you guys on the next week masterclass. Thanks for your time and have a good day.